First, before I start, I just want to really thank everyone here um, for giving this opportunity to talk about UX and AI, which is like I've been working in the field of UX for a long time now, and getting a chance to talk about something like this, and also trying to understand how AI and UX play together. It's amazing opportunity, and I would like to thank everyone, the organizers. It's like a 4 or 5 day event, so I can understand the amount of work that everyone is doing, and especially during this time. But really, thank you for this opportunity. Before I begin, I just want to give some overview of what I do and how did I come to this position. I'm Vinay Shantagiri. I'm a UX consultant working for a company called Slalom Consulting. It's based out of California. We basically serve companies around the Bay Area, giving them technological solutions. And one of the areas that I work with is the user experience. I'm pretty sure people have already heard about UX, which is like a very interesting subject and very much needed in this technological world right now. Before I joined Slalom, I did my master's in HCI, that is Human Computer Interaction, from Indiana University, Bloomington. I also have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Siddhganga Institute of Technology, Bangalore. Uh, I started my career as a design intern. I got introduction to design through an internship. I had good mentors there. They kind of helped me understand the world of UX, world of design. From that, I slowly wanted to get into the real things. Like I wanted to build apps and websites and things like that. I got an opportunity to work with a startup. It was actually only two guys, and we worked out of a bedroom. But that experience is something that I still carry forward. It has given me so much information. I still apply that even right now in my job. And those guys, they continued the product and they transformed it to a different way. And right now, the company is called Mo Engage. You might have heard, or you can Google basically. And then I wanted to get some enterprise application experience. That's when I looked for other options, and I got into a company called FICO as a UX engineer. Again, I've been fortunate to find people who really make me understand UX. So I had a very good colleague who was also a mentor, and from there I joined SAP as an interaction designer. I was not there for long, but I kind of got introduced to the complexity of enterprise applications. SAP is a huge ecosystem and needs a lot of UX designers, basically. From that, I did my master's, and now I'm working as a UX consultant. So this is a brief background of uh, how I did my master's and how I got into this job. But there's a little more about me. Just let me share my journey into UX. Basically, you can see there are two divisions over here. I've divided the entire thing into art and design. I began my journey by creating tattoos, basically. The reasons for doing that were completely different, but I enjoyed the process. I used to start with a small shape and end up doing things like what you see on the slide here. I loved the whole process. It used to allow me to unleash my creativity. It was like laid back because there was no one was paying me for this, and it was free form, right? You don't have to adhere to any rules or anything. Basically, I would start something, and on the way, I would discover that it looks like this or it can add concept like this, and I would finish up with the concept. That was my background. But once I got into companies designing certain things, uh, the dimension changed because now they're paying me, first thing. And the other thing is there is an objective. There's a process involved. Process, why? Because it's not just one designer working on something, right? And even it's not a one-time task. I'll have to recreate that. So it's necessary that we follow some kind of process for that. And those obviously business goals. If they have to pay, then they have to make money so that I get paid. So there's always goals associated with that. Then of course there's limitation when it comes to time, and whatever you design has to result in some kind of success. So to measure success, we need to produce some metrics. So this was the time when I understood the real difference between art and design. And this was all made possible by a certification that I did. I have this on the right side, this one, HFI. It was a short certification of 15 days, but it was like morning till evening, and they kind of gave all kinds of information on how people actually approach a design task. Because even before joining companies, I used to still do freelancing, and I had done projects for government organizations and things like that. When you're working with stakeholders who have a high stake in that product, you get to know that they have the complete different vision for themselves, right? I used to go to a department, the head of the department would used to say, I want this page to look like, have a background color of pink. The other team would say, no, no, I think it should be blue. There was no way for me to tell them that, hey, pink wouldn't go well or blue wouldn't go well, because even I didn't know. That's when HFI comes into picture. I kind of understood that every design decision that we take is based on a particular reason. So that's the basic difference. I wanted you guys to understand before I start this that there is a distinct difference between art and design. Okay. Moving on, let me just get some water. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to interrupt and ask. I want this to be more like a conversation. We have a Q&A session after the whole presentation, but still, if there is something which stops you from understanding further, then I would suggest you can always raise your hand and ask the question. Let's take a look at what are we going to address today. It's basically the agenda. I'm, as I mentioned, I like this subject. I like UX, I like AI, and my background with AI related stuff is more when I did my master's, I did a subject, I actually enrolled in a subject, machine learning. That's when I learned about what goes on behind the scenes, all the algorithms and all the things. It was like a brief introduction. It was not like I completely dive deep into understanding that, but it was a basic knowledge. So today, what we're going to see is what is UX, what is AI, with UX in mind, and how they both can benefit each other. That's why the term symbiosis, because there are so many applications, and you guys have already been using so many different smart applications. We can see that everything is interlinked. There is smart things that can detect the experience that you have while using that. It all basically adds value to any user who's going to interact with that system. So it's important that we address this. How can we integrate both together so that we can achieve that amazing experience? Then after UX, we'll also go through I want to introduce the user-centered design process. That's the crux of everything UX. And there's also something that we need to look at if we decide to incorporate UX in AI, basically. So what are the different things that we can do? What are the options that we have right now? That's why I have this guidelines and the UX design patterns, which is basically a Google research. We'll also address few issues about privacy and ethics, and we'll open the session for Q&A. So that's the whole idea of today's session. Moving on. Okay, so let's see what is UX. user experience. Basically, UX is user experience. There are so many different definitions that you can find online. If you Google user experience, there are so many different flavors of it. But I just wanted to bring a simple form where it's easy to understand, but it still encapsulates most of the things. So UX is the process of designing products that are useful, easy to use, and delightful to interact with. And the products can be either digital or physical. This whole term was actually invented by Don Norman, who used to work with Apple when Apple was researching many things. So this is how we relate to user experience. I actually wanted to have some interaction over here. I wanted the audience to tell me, depending on this thing, the definition that you saw and your prior knowledge of user experience. I wanted people to put it in the chat. What is examples of good UX and examples of bad UX? It can be any product. It can be something that you used today or yesterday or day before yesterday. It can be anything. But just put it in the chat and also give a particular reason, like why it's good or bad. I know that I did not see the chat option when I looked at the option, but if I mean the organizer, if you can tell me if we are going to use chat, I'll continue that, or I'll straight away go to this thing, sharing the screen. Is there a chat option here? Okay, I don't see anything, any inputs. It's fine, I'll continue. The basic idea, what I wanted to do was, I wanted to understand how people perceive UX and what is the crowd understanding of UX, basically. But moving on, we'll still look at the basics of good design. What makes UX good? Okay, there are certain design heuristics or rules or guidelines that one has to follow while designing something. It was again, this was coined. This is the whole heuristics is from the same person that we saw on the previous slide, Don Norman. After leaving Apple, they started their own firm. I think there was one more person called Nielsen. They joined together. They did a lot of research, and this heuristics is based on their research. So let's go one by one. The first one is clear system status. So whenever a person is interacting with the system, it's like a conversation, right? A person is talking to the system and the system is responding. The only way for the system to respond is to give out some kind of system status messages. Like if it's loading in the background, you see that icon which is spinning, saying that something is going on. So this is very important. For the user to get the best experience, they have to be knowing what is happening behind the scenes. Then speak the user's language. So imagine like if let's say the status says that, hey, I'm fetching the document that you asked for. If that is the actual thing, instead of showing that I'm getting the application, if the system says that we are connecting to the server using Java and the server is acting up and it is showing the things now, it would not, it is not even important for the user to know what's happening, how are you doing it. But it has to be relevant. It has to fit the context. And the best way to do it is like understand the user's mental model or the user's language and speak in those terms. So that's where the second heuristic talks about. And then design for mistakes. We all know we have done mistakes. We have seen people do mistakes. We know people who have done mistakes. So mistakes is part of learning, and this is also related to the AI part of it, because AI is also learning every time. So whatever design approach, the best experience can be given if the design also includes that people are going to make mistakes. And if they make mistakes, just make sure that they have a path to get out of it and don't get stuck in that. So that's the idea behind this one. And consistency and standards. This is one thing that most people really struggle with because, and also many websites, they don't have a consistent way of showing things and they don't maintain the standards. The best way to understand this is like, if you guys remember, it's not happening right now because of all the technological advancement with Chrome and all the browsers. But I remember when like few 10, 12 years ago, I used to browse and there used to be a just random pop-up saying that you won this or you won that. Looking at that, the messaging itself, you kind of know that, okay, this is a scam. But even if the message was apt, if the guy who was doing this, he was intelligent enough to make sure the message doesn't override these things, you can still make out because it doesn't look like the same thing that you were browsing before. The visual affordance, it's all different. It's not the standard thing that you were using before. So this is where consistency and standard comes into picture. It builds that trust in the user when they are interacting with something similar. It gives the same kind of feeling that, hey, this is the same pattern that I was using. I can just click this and get my work done. So it's that point talks about that, and it's very important. And then avoid errors by evaluating user paths. So this ties back to design for mistakes because people make mistakes. But if when you're building this application, if there's a way that you can already see that, okay, this particular section, a person can actually get into the wrong path and they might get into some kind of error, then it's the UX or the developer's responsibility so that they can adjust this and not allow the user to get into that path. So this is very important. We have a lot of information how to address this and how to even visualize this path. Then don't make users remember. I think this is straightforward. Many applications where you have to remember a key, which is like 10 digits or 15 digits, those kind of things never work because our memory is like, I would not use my memory to just remember what to input in one window and the next window. This is like waste of my memory, and also it's not easy to just remember things, right? So if the system has the capability, then it has to upfront show all the things and keep it ready for the users. So this heuristic is about that. Then don't forget expert users. This is also like the most actually very important. If you guys remember, most of the applications that you use comes with some kind of shortcuts. So the way uh, a UX person addresses a particular problem is that there are different kinds of users, right? It can be a user who's just beginning to use a particular application, or the user has already used applications like that, and he's just he knows he's an expert. So the responsibility of the design is to make sure that there's a balance between both. So when I say balance, the design has to cater to uh, the new user who's trying things for the first time, and also for the expert user. So that's where the shortcuts and that's where the expert view or something like that comes into picture. It's very important. This aspect is very important because our primary job is to make sure that both sides are balanced. We don't want to lose users. So that's about that. Then keep it simple. This is straightforward, and this actually talks about the information architecture. We all know that even with this slide that you see here, you can, looking at this slide, you know that this is a title and there are other things below that. Just the way it is arranged, you already know that there's a hierarchy going on here. So keeping it simple is more about information architecture and how you arrange the content. Even while coming up with the information architecture, it's important to understand how do you categorize different things into one category. It's called chunking. It's very important to address this before even getting into the design part. Then clear and simple error message ties back to previous things. Whatever message you show, don't surprise them, don't make it complex. Just say that, hey, there are 10 errors, just rectify those. Nothing else is needed there. And the last point is help and documentation. Even if the user is going to be expert user, they will still need some kind of assistance, because they will. It's very difficult to imagine that everyone will know everything about a particular application, right? That's where help and documentation comes into picture. Even it allows the novice user to become expert user. So these are like the basic design heuristics, and every designer is expected to follow this in every design that they produce. Any questions so far? At least can I see some thumbs up or something, just so that I understand I should continue? Or wow, so much silence early morning. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so moving away from that, I also wanted to bring this aspect of it, that UX is not just about physical products or things, or web products or applications. There are other areas where UX is equally important. Uh, First is handheld devices. We know that all the mobile phones, all the laptops, all the physical devices that we interact with, they do a lot of research. And one of the best thing that I can remember for this is people who created the first iPhone. They actually created a small model of that particular size of iPhone, made it with wood, and they actually carried it in their pocket for a long time, just to understand how this particular piece feels after having it in the pocket for a long time. So this is the kind of research that goes into understanding the user's behavior, understanding how they adapt, and what kind of experience that they have. That is about the handheld device. Then automotive. We already know this part right now. So much going on with automotive EV sector. But think about this, like there are so much going on. There is so much going on when a person is driving. First thing is the eyes have to be on the road, and they have to follow the rules. And it's only addition, it's only a help that we can do by placing certain things nearby, understanding how they can easily access certain things in certain situations. So even here, UX is really important. Then the healthcare aspect of it. Healthcare is very important right now, and it's also a very risky area. Here, both aspects, like healthcare provider and the person who receives healthcare, they both have their needs. They both have to understand what's going on. This is where the UX comes into picture. Even with medical devices, it's important, because it's actually operating on a person. So you cannot just randomly do something and it results in something really scary. So that's about healthcare. Aerospace, we already know, like if you go to the dashboard of a pilot, there are hundreds of buttons. And again, like high risk, people's lives are in their hands. And they, even like in stressful situations, they have to make sure that they understand what they have to do. And it should be easy enough to understand what is the next step for them. Uh, and then talking about AR, VR, this is a different dimension right now. At least all the other things that we deal with, if we have to design something for the existing environment, the existing world, we know that there is a limitation when it comes to senses. But AR, VR is a place that we are creating. And we basically are creating the senses as well. So this is very challenging. And also, I think it's a very emerging and promising field. But UX is again important here. Then the last one is banking and finance. You guys must already know that banking, the finance and the banking part, the data has to be reflected easy enough and fast enough so that people can take decisions. Uh, but there's also the cryptocurrency part. That's why I have this picture of the Bitcoin. Uh, Talking about cryptocurrency, I recently actually did something related to cryptocurrency just to understand how things work in that world. And I'm amazed so much have to be done. It's like the process is so complicated. There are so many different things going on. And right now, if you try to do something with that, you have to do tens and 10 different kinds of process to achieve a small thing. I'm sure people are working on this. Sure, UX designers will handle it. As the system matures, these things will also be taken care. So this is about different areas of human-computer interaction. So after this, I think it's important that we understand what is the usual process that we call it design thinking. Usually, this is the process that all the organizations or any startup, anyone who's building something which has to be put in the market, they use this process. Again, there are different flavors of process. Different companies have created their own flavor that fits their organization. But a basic version is that they actually follow this particular thing. The first step here, if you're someone who's trying to create a product, first is define the product. Basically, define what you're going to do. And if I am the person who's doing it, the way I can understand what I have to do is by understanding what the stakeholder needs. What is the business goal behind that? And there's also a concept here you can do sketches just to make sure that everyone who are the major stakeholders are on the same page. This is like the most important phase. Later, everything falls and everything kind of falls into pieces. But if you don't get this part right, then whatever you do, the end result will be not what you want out of this. So the first part is product definition. Then after you get that input, you go into the research mode. So this is where we ask the question, who's the user? Who's going to use this? There are ways to get information out of this. One of the ways is getting qualitative research interviews with actual users. This is like one-on-one interview with them, showing them different things and giving them scenarios like, if you're doing this, what kind of things would you expect, and things like that. The other aspect of this is if you're going to put this product in the market, it's important you know who are all the competitors, so that you can either learn from them or even build on top of that, so that when you launch your product, it's well received. So that's about research. Then the third phase is analysis. So you defined the product, you did some research. Now is the phase where you think about what you're going to do with this information that you've gathered. This is where we create user personas, user stories, storyboarding, all these things that I'm mentioning here. It can actually be a slide on its own. There's so much data and so many things for this, but I'm just addressing certain things here just so that you guys get familiar. So user personas, stories, and storyboarding, this is how we analyze. And of course, there's also, if there are different departments involved, we all sit together and decide, okay, which feature are we going to build now and why? Those are the things that we decide in this phase. Then after all this is done, we get into the real thing as a UX designer, designing basically. And there are different stages here. To understand the overall picture, we start with sketching if needed, or we directly jump into low fidelity wireframes. When I say low fidelity, it's just like boxes and arrows pointing to the next screen. We can also get into prototypes, clickable prototypes, where you show the real interaction and then build on top of it. Once we have a good idea, we get into the visual design part of it. And design system comes later, but it is also part of this design. Then after we have initial understanding of what the design should look like, we have to validate, because this is an iterative process. Without validation, we'll never know, and nobody should launch anything without validation. So we actually go to the actual users or select some users who are proficient with this kind of concept that we are building on. Show them your design and get information, get feedback basically. And there are different ways of doing it: usability tests, A/B tests, focus group surveys, quantitative data. People use a combination of quantitative and qualitative just so that they can get both dimensions of it. But the main point here is this is an iterative process. You get the validation, and if you see or if you get some insights, you go back to the first one, product definition, and tweak so that you follow this thing. So this is like thing that goes on, because we all know that change is the only thing constant. Things keep changing, users needs keeps changing, and we have to change along with that. So that's the overall UX process. Then moving on, I it was not necessary for me to put this 80/20 rule, but I just wanted to highlight this because it took a long time for me to understand this part. I only understood this when I started working with enterprise organizations where they have this agile method. So the basic idea here is that a high percentage of effects in any large system is caused by a low percentage of variables. Uh, this is like, I think it's straightforward that you tweak 20% of things that can actually affect the 80% of the usage of a particular thing. This is the idea behind that. And this was coined by Wilfredo Pareto, economist, and he based this on his observation that 20% of Italian people possessed 80% of the wealth. And there is no hard and fast rule that it is 80/20. It can be 70/30, it can be 60/40. But the main gist is that the effect of 20% of features are far more greater. Uh, then I also want to show how people have used this famous example of 80/20 rule. Uh, Walkman, we all know, at least some of them have used. I used it. I still remember. But Sony released Walkman in 1979. Most people thought that there was no speaker, there was no recording function, the headphones are really small, and it's a utter failure. But it was still a big hit because it possessed the 20% of the features that people wanted, that is portability and tape playback. And now you can already see the advancement that we have in this area, iPods and all those things. There's nothing that is stopping us from this. So this is about the 80/20 rule. I will ask again if anybody has any questions, just raise your hand. Then moving on. Yeah,
If
I want.
excuse me, sir, if there
Yes.
is, if anybody want to ask any question, they can raise their hand, and we will be allowing the mask for attendees.
Okay.
Uh, if anybody want to ask, they can ask.
It's fine. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure people want to understand, and after that, there'll be
So
a
I
lot of
have a
questions.
question. Can I ask
Yes,
you,
yes,
sir?
please go ahead. Yep.
Sir, you showed a spectrum of technologies. Just want to know, have you got any experience or have you ever seen some type of your requirements being given by a user or
Hmm.
a client to undertake? First thing is digital twin, sir. I heard this a lot nowadays. A concept of a digital uh, for
Digital twin.
yes, sir. Have you heard of this, sir?
No,
Okay. The
this
second
is the
point.
first time I'm hearing this.
Okay, sir. The second point, just switch on my camera. And the second point, what I wanted to just ask you regarding this VR, sir, virtual reality. Uh,
Yeah.
how does this actually help in things like see, I come from a background of the Navy, so the thing like in the ships there are
Hmm.
places which are very constrained. We are like there are tanks at the right at the bottom of the ships. So we
Hmm.
need to deploy teams for cleaning those tanks, and we just want to explain them using VR. Ki this is how you are going to experience it there when you go inside, because they are quite deep in the ship, and it's quite
Hmm.
slighted, scary. So, have you seen some type of solutions here, or do you are you aware of this? Where VR can use for this VR, AR, or
Hmm.
what simulations? Just wanted to know your.
Uh, Yeah, I've not come across any immediate need as such when it comes to this, but this is an amazing problem that you really stated over here, and
Sir.
I can see how it can be solved. The only way you can solve this is by simulation, right? Because you want people who are going to go underwater and fix that. They need to practice doing that because
Yes.
underwater the risk is high. So
Yeah.
the way to do this is like there are many engines right now. like Unity or Unreal engine, graphic engines. Using that, you can create a model, simulation model, and you can train people on that. And those things also come with certain guidelines. If you want the person to interact with certain things, and if you want that system to give some inputs based on that, they all come bundled with that. It's like a SDK that anyone can use. I would suggest look into
STK
Unity and
toolkit. You're talking
Unreal.
about STK toolkit, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh, I'm fully aware. I worked with Vijay very closely.
Okay.
I know STK pretty well, but that is a simulation. That is a different part, sir.
Yes.
I'm saying here actually I'm recreating the bottom of the hull of a ship, for example, and I want to tell him that there are four holes. There you may find 20 holes there, but when I put the diver down, the other four holes, and this hole looks like this. This is the way you have to open up the end, and that type of an experience can it be created here when you are using a VR and AR?
Oh,
That's what my question is.
I think it can be, but it'll take a lot of time. Have you,
Okay,
I mean, at least my experience of VR basically is through this Google products where I've immersed myself into certain movies or things like that. And I've seen amazing things happening there.
okay, sir.
And
Okay,
I
sir.
think it's like if you get the right people to do it, let me know. I would like to be a part of this project.
You right, sir. Right, sir. I will get in touch with you. So I don't have your email.
Sure,
I'll get
sure.
in touch. Very nice talking to you. Thank you.
Same. Thank
Regarding
you.
your question, may I intervene?
Sir,
The
please,
question
sir.
which you have asked,
Please, sir. Please, sir.
the technology which you wanted to explore is already explored.
Sir,
Take
sir,
the it is difficult to do it. It takes
sir,
time.
sir,
Certainly, it
sir,
takes time, a lot of time. For a very constrained, limited area, this can be done. It is not
sir, sir,
impossible to do it. For example, take the example of everybody had played a video game Mario
sir,
Bros.
sir,
Fine.
Mhm.
So if you want to create Mario in your real life and
sir.
have the same experience of playing video game, you
Yeah.
can create in a room. Fine.
Okay.
So you will feel that you are having those mushrooms and things like that in coming to your way,
Sir,
but the person who is outside room, he can
hello.
see that you are basically living in virtual reality. So this is the, I think this is
Sir,
what you want.
sir, I'll give you some more use cases, sir. What comes to my mind, if you permit me, sir, for a minute. Uh, if you see the 9/11, that Taj attack, not 9/11, the 26/11 attack which happened on Taj. At that time, I was in the Navy, sir, and we had our team deployed there. The problem was there, the commandos, they didn't know it's an asset. They didn't know where is the switch where I have to switch off, where is the switch I have to switch on, where can I, I have to bomb a grenade, where are the people who are staying there. So there was so much of verbal communication, and the media was so
Mhm.
hype. Our every motion was captured by the whole world, and they were, transmitting that information to the terrorists. And I come from that background, sir. So now what happens is, sir, if we have got the vital assets, I'm talking about like Bombay High becomes a vital asset for us, sir. All these Taj and all these big hotels or big places, Rashtrapati Bhavan becomes a vital asset for us. If tomorrow, if I can make a virtual image of this, I can make a virtual image and train my commandos. There is an NSG team who is working only for 10 assets. Un 10 assets mein kuch problem ho gaya, they will be deployed because they know the architecture very well. They have been trained in a virtual place like this. If there is a ship like an aircraft carrier which is a capital asset of the country, and there is a fire there inside the ship, so a person can be trained, ki this is the way you have to go the fire, how you have to fight the fire. So I'm looking at these type of high end
I I
simulation.
understood your problem, sir. This can be done. I am saying you this can be done in AR VR. With current technological scenario, AR VR will take time and money as well. There are other
Mhm.
ways to do it. Take the example of Film City. They
Mhm,
recreate many sets.
mhm.
Fine, they recreate many sets just as original as they can. Fine,
Oh,
the
that is.
only thing is that they do not have that much of capital behind them. So now what you need a way to recreate the same experience, same
Bilkul,
everything
bilkul, bilkul. We are
with the
looking at that.
parts which can be used again and again, just like a
Yes, yes,
Lego.
Mhm.
Fine.
yes,
So
yes,
if you
yes,
can
yes.
use a Lego, real world Lego, that is possible. That the with the technology we have, that is possible. So we can have discussion on this
Okay,
after the seminar, after the FDP, so that Now we need to move on, sir.
Yes, sir. Sorry,
Okay,
I
fine.
agree fully with you,
Not a
sir.
problem, sir. We can have discussion.
Yeah,
We
yeah. Well, it
even I
was
will
so
be interested
interesting
in.
when I was seeing this, and my mind went through to my naval service, so I could find some ways out, sir. Thank you very much.
Sure, sure, sure.
But this is very interesting question. Thanks for asking about
I'll get
this.
in touch with you, sir.
Sure.
Okay, sir.
Okay, continuing, I wanted to give a few examples of real life UX enhancements. And I wanted to bring into picture the things that we normally use, generally use. The first one is Google Maps. I'm pretty sure everyone has used Google Maps here. And look at the interaction there, the enhancements, they keep adding so many different things. The area of interaction is so small, but it can do so many things. If you want a different location to be added, you just have to click that button here, and you can basically keep adding different locations. And there's a new feature where if you come across any accident or roadblocks, you can just report that. And it's like there's an icon plus, and you just report that, it will get that info and give you a confirmation. So this is like enhancements, and I think companies like Google, they keep building this, and this is all done through research. They go through rigorous testing of how and what is the best way for the user to use this feature, and what kind of output they should expect. Similarly, Google Wellbeing. This is something I'm trying to use right now. I'm not sure if everyone is aware of this feature, but this has helped me a lot. And it's like I'm pretty sure many people have seen this happening because of the social media. At least in my experience, I go try to search something on YouTube. Uh, I have this burning problem at work and I want to understand this concept before I design something. I go to YouTube and I try to search something. I spend 2.5 hours. End of the session, I have not learned anything about what I was looking for. But I know how to feed a giraffe, what kind of food cat likes, how can you escape attack from a bear. These kind of distractions that we go through. Google has addressed this, and many other applications, not only Google. They are trying to address these things because they are now aware that whatever they created, it can also create a negative path for them. Um, the other example is the WhatsApp audio. This is something very interesting actually that I noticed a few days ago. That's why I wanted to put this here. Initially, the chat, it was like more of just typing things, right? And I know that most people don't like just chatting, so they introduced this feature of voice, which is amazing. People are now used to sending voice messages. It's like you can say many things, you don't get tired typing. Uh, but the recent advancement here is that speed of the voice message. And this is a good thing, and also a thing that can become bothersome. In my experience, my wife is from a different background and she talks a different language. And I keep hearing this particular thing. She is someone who can grasp things which are very fast. So she puts it on loudspeaker, her grandma speaking or her mother speaking, and it's like on the loudspeaker, and she increases the speed. It is good for her because she can grasp, but for me, it's like I don't understand the language and it is going so fast. It kind of like I give so much attention to that, and that's when I noticed like some of the things, even if it is solving a problem, there is the other side of it which can create some effect. So I just want to bring the real life example about UX here. So moving from here, yeah, so we are kind of coming to the end of UX part of it. The summary here, it's very important to understand that UX is all about the overall experience interacting with any kind of system, product, or service. Well-defined process. It's actually a well-defined process that keeps the user as the main focus. Then it's again iterative process that advocates learning from mistakes and tweaking as needed. This is very similar to what AI does, right? It learns from the experiences that the data that you feed, it keeps learning and tweaking in the model. And this point is very important to know. If somebody here is interested to get into UX, it is important to know that there is no perfect design. There cannot be a perfect design because it always depends on the context, and context keeps changing. Right? That's the next point actually. Context keeps changing, and the design needs to accommodate those kind of changes. So that's everything about UX. I have certain things here. If somebody is interested to read more, these are the terms that are now very important. Design strategy is basically all the things that we saw. It's about one designer working, but if you are in a position of a manager and you have 10 designers working with you, and the stakeholders are depending on you, there's a team working together. There has to be a strategy when to design, what to design, and how to do user research. So this is very important. And then user research methodologies. Even when you decide doing research methodologies, there are different methods especially made for certain kind of information. So it's important to understand the overall spectrum of that so that you can choose the right kind of research methodologies. The new thing that I've heard about is about service design. It's a very good and very important one. We always think about a product being built, right? But right now, it's like a product is fashioned into something concrete using different teams, and there are hundreds of people in a particular team. They have their own flow inside. It's not about the product, but it's about the way they work together to bring the product into the market. So that flow, nobody was taking care of it. That is also important because it reflects how fast and how effective they can be in producing this particular product. So this is the service design is behind the scenes flow. Then design handover, this is also very important. You design something as a designer, you give the designs to the developer, and they have to build and make sure that it looks like the design, right? So there's always different tools related to this, and it's always good to understand how do you communicate with the developer so that your design looks exactly when it is built. Then design system. Design system is again going back to big organizations. You don't have to go to the designer all the time. If there is a small tweak that you have to do, you can do it through design systems. It's nothing but a component or a standard design library where everything looks similar. There are standards that you follow, and it's readily available for the developer. So if they have to tweak something, they don't have to connect to the designer and see if everything is right. They just go to the design system, which is already checked. They can just take that component and start building their own stuff. So that's about that. And mobile first approach, we all know about this now. There are so many devices that we consume content on. It's always good to start with the mobile because it's not that everyone is using mobile, but also when you have to shrink things to fit the mobile platform, then you are very, very aware of what kind of grouping you want to do with the content. So this gives that clarity. So this is about mobile first approach. And then enterprise design is a different thing. Again, all these things are connected. So it's good to understand how enterprise design works. And of course, UX metrics, whatever you do, people ask that question. How is it affecting the entire users, the entire user experience? And how can I know? How can I measure success? This is something any UX designer needs to understand if they're trying to get into this. This is what gets them the funding. This is what gets them a new budget for other things to do. So this is about further reading for UX. Going further, I think we'll be starting with AI. Okay. So we looked at UX as a whole. Now we can just get into some of the AI related stuff and also understand what is the UX perspective of AI. Again, going back to any kind of definition. The definition of artificial intelligence, there are different flavors, but most of
ಏನ್
them,
ಬಸಣ್ಣ
the,
ಬಂದೆ
but
ಬಂದೆ
most of them they kind of relate all these definitions to human intelligence. So basically, that's what this definition is talking about. Artificial intelligence is the simulation of human intelligence processed by machines, especially computer systems. So there's always like a correlation between if we can achieve human-like intelligence, then we have cracked AI. So that's the ideology there. It's all very technology oriented and very computation system oriented. But what UX is trying to bring is the experience part. So that's why the UX perspective kind of changes a little bit, but still retaining the underlying thought here. AI is any technology that appears to adapt its knowledge and learns from experience in a way that is considered intelligent. So emphasis here is on knowledge, learns, and the experience, and underline the experience part, because this is the way that this is the most important thing that can carry on and make the user come back and use, and in a way get data, more usage data for the AI system. So we'll look at this further again, but this is about the definition. Then it's also good to know what is the contrast between AI and UX. AI, if you look at the contrast, AI is usually driven by technology, but UX is more towards driven by empathy. So usually you empathize with the users, the way they use a particular device, the environment that they are in while using that. All these things are included in designing the overall experience of the user. Then AI can successfully complete a task. So that's no problem with AI. But UX is not only the task, but they focus beyond task and focus on the experience. And then AI is usually motivated by achieving an extremely intelligent and complex task. But when it comes to UX, the motivation is to make that complex and intelligent task, the interaction related to that, seamless and satisfying. So that's basically when we just, it's not a complete comparison or difference, but it's just understanding where both of these stand. Then moving on, we also, if you look at similarities and how they overlap, the basic and the most important is, like, in the end, it's all about the users, right? So whatever advanced technology you create, it has to be consumed by something, someone, and that is the end user. And usually it's us, humans. So there's a famous marketing slogan used by a company called Ameritech years ago. It said, if technology doesn't work for people, then it just doesn't work. And that's true. To a large extent, it is true. And the other similarities, like both AI and UX are iterative process. AI keeps learning basically, and adjusts the model, tunes the model. And UX is also about adjusting to the change in user needs. More about Ameritech, I wanted to just highlight the fact that Ameritech Tech was related to Bell Laboratories, which later on the researchers who worked there kind of were responsible for all the modern day UI interaction that you see, like the mouse and the pointers, the windows, the folder concept, all these things came from the researchers who were also involved with Ameritech before. Then while talking about similarities, it's important to understand some of the things, like the impression. First impression goes a long way. So talking about this, like first time someone uses a very advanced AI enabled device, if they don't understand what they're using, I don't think they will come back to use it. So that's why the first impression is very important. It doesn't matter if your algorithm has amazing accuracy, amazing data and everything, but if the end user is not able to achieve certain things with that, then it doesn't matter. So first impression goes a long way. Please underline that. Then on the same lines, I want to address like what happened to voice assistants with the first impression concept here. So I'll be talking about the first voice assistant that was introduced, that is the Apple Siri. So when it was released, people had this idea that, okay, so Apple has cracked this. Like, depending on the reputation that Apple has with technology, all the things that they previously created, like iPhone, iPod, all these things, when Siri came, everyone thought that, okay, this is the age of AI now. We are stepping into that right now. But as people used the Siri, they came to know that it's not all intelligent, and it cannot be because it was training, right? But the initial impression was that people used to ask certain things out of context, and Siri would say, "I don't know," or "need to get more information on this," and things like that. This kind of hampered their expectation on what is AI and what it can do. And this kind of negative experience, it transferred to everything that came along after related to this voice assistance. That's why we have this curious case of Cortana. This is about Microsoft Cortana. Uh, this was introduced later, but still, they did not see the same kind of traction that Siri had, because people who had used Siri before, they were already kind of familiar and they were not happy with the way they interacted, and not many people used it. But they were already in that phase where people were not using it. Other than that, when it comes to Cortana, it was like addressed by people who worked on Cortana itself. They made a huge mistake by giving the option search anything. So basically, when they introduced Cortana, they had this search bar and it said search anything. So people followed that. They started searching for anything, but Cortana was not prepared for answering anything. So this also kind of hampered. So that's why the idea behind first impression, it always sets it, and it can actually stop if a particular area of AI is growing into something. This kind of small mistakes can even stop the budget and just dissolve the whole product. And we would not see the same kind of advancement if the experience was good, and if it had learned, there would have been amazing results. So the basic thing is just make sure the user gets what they are looking for when the first time they use it. So that's about this one. Uh, Going further, yeah, I wanted to give some examples of AI being extremely helpful. We have to talk about this because we talked about certain things, certain problems, but what are the areas that I can see right now? I wanted to pick certain things that I'm familiar with, because if you Google, there are hundreds of things. But Tesla sensors, this is something amazing what I've experienced so far. I don't own a Tesla, but I know people who own it, and I know people who work for Tesla, and I've experienced this aspect of it. The kind of sensors, the number of sensors that they use on the car, it's just mind blowing. And the way that it can maneuver itself on the road, the autopilot feature is just amazing. Auto steer is what the feature is called. Their sensors can really detect many things and make an informed decision where to stop, identify signals, those kind of things. And there's also this feature called Smart Summon. So imagine with this auto steer and all those things, how many people have actually escaped like close calls when they're driving? There are many cases. If you just Google, you'll see. Similar to that, like Smart Summon is a feature where by click of a button, your car is going to come out of the garage and just stand in front of you. That is also amazing. I've seen videos or instances where people have used this when it is like extremely rainy and people are shopping, they come outside, they cannot go there, they just do this and the car comes in. So these are the small examples of how AI is helping every aspect of it. Then the other one that I constantly use is Google Assistant. I use Google call screening all the time. It's like if you take your phone and call me right now, you're going to actually hear a message from Google Assistant, basically saying that this person is using Assistant, please state the purpose of the call. And only after that I receive. So it's like I used to get a lot of scam calls, and this kind of has completely eliminated that aspect of my calling experience. And I use it, and I suggest everyone use it also. Then appointments, reminders, and schedules. I use it every day for everything. My wife uses it. We both use it together. So it's like all my schedules, even like when I book a air ticket, I already see that assistant knows, and it also already gives me reminders that, hey, your flight is just 2 days away or something like that. So this is very helpful as a user, basically. Talking about a few helpful examples. we still are not sure if AI is 100%. And I don't even know if AI can be 100% because it's very hard to decide what is 100%, right? And there's a video after this slide. I just wanted to highlight like the simple things that can go wrong, and it can also be a funny thing. So I just wanted to bring this to notice. The next video is about technology that is used to identify focus on football, basically. So uh, even like when I watch cricket, I always imagine like how is that cameraman able to pan and keep the focus on the ball. There are different techniques that they use, and similarly in a game like football, it's very difficult because the nature of the ball is like it moves sporadically. Don't even know. And some of the people who were testing the AI, they kind of wanted to test it with this technology and see if it can detect properly. And let's see the video. This is what happened basically. Yeah, the AI detected the ball, but it also accidentally detected the referee because he is bald. It kind of equated that the ball can be both referee's head and also that. So this is kind of funny, but I just want to bring the point that as humans, we understand that it is not the ball, but as AI, it needs more data, and this is where we lack right now. The human touch and as well as good data, good training data. And people who actually felt bad because of me showing the bald aspect of it, you don't have to worry. I'm on the way, as you can see on the camera. I'm almost there. So don't please have a bad feeling or even have a bad comment saying that I'm biased. I'm actually that, and I'm going to be that. So that's about this. Moving further, yeah, after watching all these things, we still have to address this, right? Can UX add any value to AI? The simple answer is, of course, yes. But how are the ways that it can actually add value? We'll go one by one and take a look at this. First impressions can foster continued usage. So we talked about this. The first impression is what will make users to continue using, and that's when more people use it, use the product, more data for the AI to learn and become accurate. So that's why the first 2 points talk about that. Then garbage in, garbage out. This is a concept where again, coming back to AI, what you feed AI, the quality of what data set that you feed in is the quality of the output, right? And you cannot maintain the quality without understanding what features, if you're, for example, if you're building something specific for an end user, you need to make sure that the data that is getting trained has certain features or labels associated with the actual interaction in your data set so that it can detect, it can be more accurate. That's why the concept of garbage in, garbage out. People who are working with this need to take care that the data is sound. Then the other aspect is age of ubiquitous computing. Yes, yeah. So yeah, we can all agree that it's the age that we're living in, right? At least I don't have in this house, but I've seen when I visit my friends, as soon as they enter, they already have like the AC is on, the temperature is optimum because it's all pre-programmed. They have this Nest thermostat where they already set that, hey, this is my ideal temperature, and I want every day this has to be the case. So we are in a situation where we don't even actually give too much attention to this, but we are experiencing it. So in this age, and this will keep continuing. It's like AI is getting involved in simplest of things that we interact with, and it is very important that getting the user's experience right in this age is very important. So that's about this one. Then AI doesn't know where the line is. We need to draw it. This is so interesting, and also it's kind of scary. And this is so true. AI doesn't know because it operates on the data that you feed in. It's us, we have to say that, hey, there's a boundary there, or this particular sector needs a boundary. So it's again the experience that defines this. More people use a particular app or a particular technology, the more the AI will know where to draw the line. So again, it goes back to this. And the last one, nobody wants to give up control unless they trust it completely. This is so true. This is like so important, because going back to that Tesla autopilot thing, the first time I experienced it, I was like really shocked. I was wondering, I was looking at that person who was in the driver's seat, asking, hoping that he just touches the steering wheel, because I did not believe it, and I did not want to give the system so much control that if it gets into some kind of problem, then I wouldn't feel happy about this, right? So Tesla has addressed this. They kind of noticed that it's very difficult for any new person to adapt to this kind of technology. So it has put in this aspect in their whole experience. Every 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I think, you'll get a notification that just put your hands on the wheel, so that it knows that you're still there. So this is a very good thing. This is how they maintain the experience, overall experience of the user. Okay, moving on. This is some kind of interactive thing that I wanted to do. This is like a simple example of how UX and AI work together. Okay, so there are two applications over here: Quick Draw and Auto Draw. Quick Draw is the main objective of this application is collect data, basically. When you start drawing something on the board, it kind of tries to identify what are you drawing, and auto draw is more like the advanced version of quick draw. And what are we going to learn from understanding these two are Quick Draw was version 1 and Auto Draw was the next updated version. So there are things that Google did when they approached or when they designed the Quick Draw aspect of it, when it comes to AI and how easy it is to learn. They kind of use the concept of gamification, where people get interested and they engage with the software, with the interface, giving them more data to work on. That's how they approached it, and they collected all the data and they built AutoDraw. So I wanted people to use it. I'm giving this link. You guys can actually copy this and access it on your own. But I would still show how it actually works. So this is Quick Draw, and of course, when I start drawing, you might hear some noise, because this is made to say out loud what it's recognizing. But if you want to try it on your own, just go to this URL. The basic idea is like I start drawing something. It is, again, when I said gamification, it kind of makes it into a game. In under 20 seconds, I have to draw this BlackBerry. I don't even know how I do that, but let me just try. I'm still not getting it right. If I don't get it right, it just it just said it's not sure. Okay, let me try one more thing just to give an idea. So it has asked me to draw a pool. I'm trying to do. I'm so bad at this. It's giving me only hard things, but you guys understood, right? I try to do this. If it identifies this, it's kind of putting that data in the data set just so that it can learn from it. So learning from this, they came up with this option. The auto draw is the advanced feature, where even if I try to draw something, it kind of already guesses what I'm trying to do and gives me options on the top. So for example, if I'm trying to draw a carrot, you can already see that this area is full of options for me. And I already see, if I just put a simple line again, keep updating it, it keeps updating that aspect of it. And all I have to do is just select from this. So this was achieved. This is like a sophisticated software, right? But to achieve this, they have to go with this. so that they can get enough data for the main application to work with. And the way they did it is very impressive. They used many aspects of UX, inviting people to work with it, making sure the experience is good, the look and feel, everything. They took care of most of the things. So this is about that simple example. Moving forward, yeah, this is where we get into a little bit of other things associated with integration of UX and AI. Just give me a minute. Okay. How can we efficiently integrate UX and AI together? Anybody who's working on something like this, the best way to do is create a guideline. And the guideline is based on a lot of research, a lot of understanding, a lot of different departments coming together. And the purpose of guideline is somebody who's working on the same kind of problem. They just follow this and everything is taken care. Not everything, of course, there are certain things that you have to do. But the basic things which are already identified are taken care through the guidelines. Anybody who's or any organization which is working on something like this have to make sure all the things on the right side that you see in small boxes are relevant or are employed in this particular process. The first one is multidisciplinary. When you talk about UX and AI, it's not just the developer who's going to use this or designer. So it is a generalized guideline which has to be used by many different disciplines, right? So that's why this point, whatever research goes on to create this guideline has to accommodate multiple disciplines. Then research diverse group of people, again very similar to that, but there are different people who bring in different kind of experience, right? Even in my world, I've seen, like, I work 6 to 8 months on a particular thing. We recently launched a product actually, but when it was received, when it was launched, the way it was received will actually surprise you. All the iterations, all the things that you thought might not happen or might happen, it's all gone basically. Some users come up with amazing stuff and they give a different dimension to that. And this is what is necessary. If something has to be generalized that can fit everything, the diverse group of people, research with them is very much important. Then the other one is experience focus, because yes, of course, we are talking about UX, it's about experience. So this is pretty much straightforward. And we all have experienced the funding and resources part. Everyone knows that getting this aspect right is one of the steps to ultimate success, right? And to get funding, to get resources, the person who is working on this has to make sure that there's enough justification that, hey, if you try to research on this, it's going to help the 10 different products that we are going to launch in few years. So that kind of correlation, that kind of things will come only with research and the high thinking on that. Then technology and data sets. This is pretty straightforward. Dealing with AI, the technology has to be right and the data set has to be sound. So just making sure that happens. And promote participation. This is more like um, uh, anything that goes on which is supposed to be generic and which is supposed to be used by many different people can be achieved if it is open to suggestions, right? This part talks about that. Promote participation so that many other communities can tag along and they develop this thing along with you. That's the idea behind this. Especially with AI, and because it's learning, it's so good to see that AI needs data, and you cannot just encapsulate in a shell that only you are going to use it. It has to be open. It has to have several different hands in the same thing. It becomes a very collaborative effort. I like that aspect, and I'm sure everyone here also appreciates that. So this is about the efficiently integrating UX and AI. Moving forward from here, I want to highlight that all the things that we saw in the previous slide is actually done by Google, basically. So they have started this initiative to bridge the gap between UX and AI. They have done research. They have included so many different areas, experts from different sectors, user researchers, user UX designers, to come up with a guideline, basically a guidebook that anybody can follow. They've come up with toolkits, methods, and best practices for designing human-centered AI experiences. It is open source, actively worked on. They have so many symposiums and seminars. If you go to their website, just Google People plus AI research, you'll end up there. They have so much material, and they have done amazing work in this particular section. And I would encourage people to go and browse through, especially if you're building any application which is AI enabled. You should really refer this document. They have other aspects as well, like privacy and how to make sure that the user is feeling safe, things like that. But continuing on this, what are we going to do next is, based on their research, they have come up with certain design patterns that can be actively used. If somebody is building an app, AI enabled app, they can cross check and understand how design patterns come into picture when it is AI. So there is a different set of research that was done. Based out of that, they had like 23 design patterns based on some core concepts that they come up with. But we are not going to see all the 23. I've just selected 15 of them, and we are going to go through each one of them. Okay, so before we get into the design pattern aspect of it, I just want to give some background of how we are going to do this. For the purpose of learning or understanding, what Google did was they came up with hypothetical apps, just so that anyone who's looking at the design pattern understands the context. So they created this hypothetical 3 apps. One is called Run. Run is a health and fitness app which tracks progress and recommends running routes and workouts. If somebody wants to have a better understanding of this, they can relate to any of the fitness apps that they're working. It will make it easy. But it's all about health and fitness. Then Plant Pal is the next one. Plant Pal is a plant identification app which helps users identify plants and determine their safety for people and pets. Basically, how it works is like you open up the camera, you focus on the plant, you just take a picture, and the app does all the background information check and gives the output saying that, hey, I identified this is this plant, and it's most likely safe to use, or it is not safe to use. It can harm you or your pets, something like this. So this is the basic idea behind that. Then the next app is Owl. Owl is an educational chatbot that provides real-time tutoring and assistance with school assignments. So if you want to have an easy understanding on this, you can relate to either Coursera or Udemy. Very similar, but certain aspects are not that wide. But going further, when we look at all the design patterns, we will be going through scenarios from each of these apps. So having said that, let's see the first one. So here, the first design pattern is determine if AI adds value. Basically, the scenario here, this is again the health and fitness app. The scenario here is like the app provides recommendations based on workout history and music history. So on the left side, you see that the app has generated some recommendations based on the user's workout history. And on the right side, it has generated recommendations based on music history. But if you look at the left side, the app already knows that this person is into running. So it's just extending their interest by giving different routes that the user can take, like scenic routes, urban paths, that can enhance their experience. But if you look at the right side, it's just giving different workout options. This is where it actually adds no value, because there is no specific category of workout, and we don't even know if the user actually likes all these things. So this is where the AI value comes into picture. Just because your system can do something doesn't mean that you have to do that. Only do things which are relevant and contextual. That's the idea behind this design pattern. Going further, the second one, set the right expectations. Let's take a look at the scenario here. Marketing messaging for the plant app. Okay, yeah. So we remember the plant app. These are two different ways of marketing. What it does basically, it's like advertisement. The left one says clearly that PlantPal helps you identify 400 plus plant types native to the United States. It's kind of setting that limitation. It's clearly identifying that, hey, this is what I know, this is what we can do. There's a boundary to that. It's being very authentic with that approach. On the other side, the right side, it says a botanist you can keep in your pocket, use it to identify any plant and determine its safety. So they're using the word any, which is actually very wrong. And this can set the expectation in a wrong way, right? Somebody who thinks about this and tries to use this is completely false information. And they might not, they might end up even writing reviews, bad reviews on this, and even not using this. So all the effort that you put just by a simple messaging can completely hamper the progress. So this is where the second design pattern comes into picture. Set the right expectations. Then explain the benefit, not the technology. Here the scenario is again marketing messaging for the education app. If you look carefully on the left side, it pretty much clearly says that OWL is an educational tool that adapts to your learning style and is available anytime, basically. And then on the right side, it says OWL is an innovative AI-based chatbot that leverages a neural conversational model and natural language processing techniques. This is mouthful and also very confusing. Somebody who doesn't have any understanding of these technologies wouldn't even relate to what it actually basically does, right? So this kind of giving false information again. This happens mostly with AI because you are putting so much effort in your AI. You want to highlight that you are using this technology, that technology, but you have to make sure that this is actually helping the users. So that's why this one explain the benefit, not the technology. Moving further, be accountable for errors. I think this is very straightforward in even non-AI things also, but the scenario here is user identified a problem with the app and reported. So on the left side, there is no right or wrong in this example because it's basically error message in a different flavor. So here you can see on the left side, it says that you've reported incorrect citation and thanks. They're basically thanking that you've reported that. And what are the different steps that you can take? They are actually allowing you to chat with the customer representative and get more details on this one. This is on the left side. And on the right side, a different scenario, but also a good one, is someone has identified that this particular plant, there's a fault in the AI. It said that it is safe, but when I fed it to my cat, it's kind of creating a different problem. So this is a scenario where you can learn from one mistake and make sure that this doesn't trickle into other aspects, like all other users, they don't have to suffer, right? So if you are already aware of some problem, you can already stop that and make sure that it doesn't affect all the other users. So this is about how to handle and being accountable for errors. Going further, this is actually not a comparison or not related to an app or something like that, but this is like basic understanding. They're trying to say is like invest early in good data practice. High quality data is what is important to get high quality results, right? So they're talking about incomplete understanding of data that doesn't match the real world. This is also important. Hypothetical, if you make up stories, then it can result in something else, right? Then poor data documentation and undervaluing data work. This is something very important. I think we'll touch on this again later. But people who help a company to get the data, if you don't give them enough tools and good experience while they're labeling or creating data for you, it'll actually end up harming the whole experience, right? Again, going back to data, how good the data is defines how good your product is. It's at least in this AI enabled devices. Then next one, precision and recall. This is just talking about how you have to be precise in certain industries, and you can take a call where it is relevant. But here on the left side, you can see that this particular model has classified all the true positives, but there are some other things which are left behind, but still it's very precise compared to this one, where it is actually trying to address all the true positives, but while doing that, it has also got some false positives. So where to use something like this, if it is healthcare and other areas where the risk is high, this will be very important, this kind of model. And if you think, if you're doing something related to music recommendation or movie recommendation, the errors can be considered okay because it's not harming too much. Maybe it can give a different flavor. If somebody is looking for a music recommendation, you accidentally refer something, it can start a new chain of thought in them, right? So this point is all about that. Then 7, be transparent about privacy and data settings. Scenario here is app is providing more info on how it is able to recommend and what data it uses. So basically, it kind of is giving the information to the user that this is how we are able to recommend. It collects information about your location, work history, workout history, and it also gives a clear option to manage that. If you are not happy with this, you can just manage and select what you want us to use. And we all already know privacy and data settings. It's like everyone is talking about that. And there are rules, there's laws now that we have to follow. We have to make it easy for anyone to understand how much data has been collected from their experience and whether it's easily identifiable if it's personalized, things like that. So this design pattern talks about that aspect. Then make it safe to explore. So here, look at the scenario. User wants to test what happens by sharing workout history data. So this is like a very common scenario, right? I'm pretty sure everyone has done this. Like at least I know that I've done this. People want to test by just seeing, okay, I want to just test. I don't want to completely get into this. I want to just use it and understand if this is useful. So while doing this, we have to make sure that they feel safe. The way they have done this here is like on the left side, you see that the number here is 2234. So the user has not shared the workout history. So it's like a huge number. But once they share it here, it kind of reduces. It's more catered towards their need. But it adds a particular line here saying that showing groups that are similar to your interest, you can stop sharing your workout history anytime. This simple line can add so much value and to that experience that I'm okay. I can just test it, and if I'm not happy, I can change it back. So it's very minute, but still it goes a long way for the first impression. Then add context from human sources. Scenario, 2 different apps recommending options to the users. So here, again, it's like anybody who's using or interacting with the AI-enabled system for the first time, there has to be enough trust, right? How do you enable people to trust you? If for example, let's take this example, like in this it's the education app. The first one is the education app, where a person is asking what are the best books about women's history, and the app is saying that, hey, there are so many different things that I've found recommended by a very well-known source, Princeton University Press. If the source is not mentioned, then there's always a thought that where is it? Can I rely on this source? Is it? How is it generating this? So this kind of skeptical thinking can be solved just by making sure that you get the information from a trusted source. Here they're using a very famous trusted publishing house. Similarly, on the right side, if you don't have a trusted organization or something, you can still suggest community ratings. In this fitness app, it's suggesting that, hey, you can try this particular trail, and it has been rated high within the community. So highest rated routes among your running group. So this kind of additional information related to where the source is coming from adds to the overall experience. Then determine how to show model confidence, if at all. Okay, the scenario here, plant app has identified the plant and is showing the confidence level of the result. So think about this, like people who build AI enabled technology or devices, they are very proud of their model, right? They want to show that, but how you show that makes a lot of difference. In the example on the left side, it kind of, okay, this plant app has identified the plant, and it is saying that most likely it is safe. But double check with an expert if you have kids, pets. It's like giving more information. It also gives a button, learn more. You can do some research on your own. It's kind of being very authentic here. But if you look at the other one, it just says 82% safe. This is like your, when you program and you got the result 82%, you just added that and no other bundling over here. Information like this will not sit well because it just specifies the actual number without much details, and it can cause a lot of confusion. So just make sure how do you bundle your confidence level also makes a lot of difference. And there are also like situations where if you're saying that we are 90% confident, somebody who might get affected by this in certain areas, they are also allowed to take legal action because they are saying that, hey, I used your app, it said this and I did that, now it's not happening. So just to avoid those things, just make sure what kind of confidence and how do you bundle that messaging. Then 11, explain for understanding, not completeness. Yeah, this is pretty much straightforward. Scenario plant app has identified the plant and is showing the reason behind the inference. So basically it's about the plant app. On the left side, you see that it's identified and is showing like how did it achieve this. It's kind of giving straight away information. The plant shape, color match closely with the images our experts have labeled. So that's why we are selecting this as this plant. Imagine a message like this: plant classification algorithm weighs color, shape, height, texture, and 20 additional factors when identifying plants. So this is like too much information. Just giving this kind of information, it kind of gets the user more confused, and they can put them off using this, and it can basically hamper the whole experience. They would not even try to get into this aspect. If somebody who's not technically savvy, if they look at this, then I don't think they would even trust because they don't understand what is the reasoning behind this. And trust is, of course, we have just established that trust is so important for someone to continue using, right? Then going further, automate less when risk is more. This is a very good one. Education app has automatically added citations to a history paper. This is the scenario. Okay. So think about this scenario. You're using this app and you selected automatically add citations. Okay, there's a button and you clicked that, and it gave a message saying that finished adding your citations to the history paper, but we are also giving you an option to review and see if everything is fine. So this works well because I still have control over this. If it has done some mistake, I still can review and make that adjustment. But imagine, just because the AI can actually do it, if you submit it without getting the review and not even giving an option to undo, then it can completely throw the whole course, right? They wouldn't like to do anything on this kind of app because people still want to feel being. That's about this one. And next one is give control back to users when automation fails. This is very important and very straightforward also. The scenario here is education app has failed to verify 4 citations. You can see that it couldn't verify 4 citations, is kind of giving the reasons behind that. But it also gives clear call to action buttons saying that you can review citations or you can just go away from this. So this is very important. Users still have to feel that they are in control, unless they have experienced other ways where it has been successful. Then design for data labelers. This is again going back to that aspect where if you want the data set, if you want good data, then you have to make sure the people who are doing or preparing this, working behind the scenes to get this data right, have the best tools and experience. An example here is data labelers are using the plant app to label the plants. So basically, they're looking at this. This is the back end of the label app. They've selected certain labels over here. This is and it kind of gives that easy selection, right? Nobody, people can make mistakes while typing. So just to avoid those things, there are already pre-filled labels. Users have to just select that. And also, if there's any errors, it kind of highlights that, hey, there's some error and you need to fix that. Most of the time, people tend to use softwares for this, and they don't actually give too much attention to the experience that these guys are experiencing. But again, if you want the data to be good, handle everything. Then the last one, let users supervise automation. This is also good and also very similar. The scenario, user finished a tutoring session on the education app and needs to schedule next session. Imagine you just finished watching something and you have to schedule the next one. Look at the left option here. It says confirm next session and it's giving you options based on your calendar. It's already identified that, hey, you're busy this day and that day, and it's giving you options according to your calendar. 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. works. Here you can see this, and you can either select others or not confirm, or you can just get out of this. There are so many options for the user. The road is not closed. But here, just because the AI can do, if you select for the user, then I don't think anybody would want this kind of experience. On this one, it's saying that your next session has been automatically scheduled for the same time next week. It assumed that you are free. It assumed that you want it in this way. Assumption on any levels are really very, very difficult to handle. So this comes us to the takes us to the end of the design patterns. Let me see. Okay, we have, yeah. Then what else can we talk about? Like, what else is there that can impact UX while working with AI? There are two major things over here, like privacy and ethics. Those are different things, but very important. We touched on this in previous examples, but I want to highlight this and also give some examples of how people experienced negative experience when it comes to certain AI prediction or AI related stuff. One is the target AI prediction. So I'm not sure if everyone is aware of that, but there was a scenario where Target actually identified a teenager being pregnant, and they kind of sent a lot of marketing material related to pregnancy. And the girl was actually living with her father, and she's a teenager, so it's like underage as well. So the father got really irritated and kind of tried to take action by calling Target and saying that, hey, your model might be wrong, you're predicting wrong things, and this can set wrong kind of ideas. Just make sure that there is some solution for this. Target did that. Target like accepted that there might be a problem and things like that. But it turns out that the Target was right. So the AI predicted it in the right way. But even if everything was Target AI was right, is it good for something like this to happen? So I'll let you guys decide. I just want to bring this up, but you'll be the judge of this. Then Facebook memories algorithm. I have personal experience with that, but I also have heard from people, especially people who have lost some loved ones. They kind of get this algorithm. I think it happened when they actually launched this algorithm. Many people got pictures on the screen of certain people, it's not fault of Facebook as a feature, because this, some people have actually got very good feeling about this, right? But it can also add some negative feeling for certain kind of people if it shows certain aspect of it which people are trying to forget. At least this happened to me, not with Facebook, but I lost my father 2.5 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago. And sometimes I still get, because I have all the pictures when I visited India, all the pictures are in my Google thing. When I look at this, suddenly when I wake up and it says that, hey, 1 year ago you were doing this. Uh, it doesn't affect too much, but still I think about when the event happened in the time when I was going through that. If these things keep happening, then it can impact in a negative way. So I don't know how people can handle this, but there is definitely grounds to take care of it here. Then face detection algorithm. I don't know if everyone is familiar, but here at least this is a very hot topic. There are researchers working on this, making sure that all the algorithms used for face detection are not biased. Because there have been certain cases over here where the algorithm that they use are more biased towards white faces, and kind of doesn't recognize color faces. So there have been instances where people have the technology mismatched certain people, and people faced a lot of problems because of that, jail and all those things, legal things. So this is also very important to make sure technology is advancing, but make sure that it encapsulates all the things necessary as a human being. So this is about that. I don't have too much information on the black box aspect of it, but when I was researching for this particular talk, I came across Explainable AI by IBM, and I find the whole notion behind that very interesting. So just wanted to highlight that the whole thing about explainable AI is that right now, not many people know what is this AI, right? What is it doing? You give input, on the other hand, you get the output. So it's like this middle part is like a black box. Nobody understands it. So they are trying to change this notion, trying to come up with ways where people can actually understand what is happening. And even for other developers, if it's an open source thing, if somebody else has to use the APIs or the SDKs, things like that, it gets easier for them to understand. So this is the initiative that is currently happening. And I just wanted to highlight so that you guys get the overall idea. So moving forward, yeah, this is the summary part. Uh, we've talked so much about this, but these are again the same kind of things. The important thing to note down here is AI should include the overall experience rather than just technology and computation. We've talked so much about that. In the end, it's all about the users. Please underline this. Any technology, anything, it's about the users. They are the people who are going to use this. Then Google UX can enhance trust. Good UX can enhance trust that leads to adoption. This is a basic thing that we addressed, and trust is very important, right? It can take anything anywhere, even in life, basically. So the other aspect is Google People plus AI guidebook. This is very important. Anybody who's trying to work on this, I would suggest go to their website and think about how did they read about how they came with all these design patterns. And if you're short of time, you just want to have a reference, then you can just use their design patterns as a reference. Then symbiosis. UX and AI need each other to be successful, and this is the whole talk. I'm trying to suggest that we need to couple both together because the future is that, right? Future is UX and AI working together. So on the same lines, let's go to the next one. I have, to solidify this point, I have a small video here. I'm not sure if you guys can hear the audio, but I'll test it when it runs. Okay, this video is about the CEO of Google introducing the Google Assistant making an appointment. It basically Google Assistant calls and schedules an appointment. So let's take a look at that. I will end my talk with this video. Uh, Let me know if you guys are able to see the or hear the audio.
No, sir. We are not able to
Oh,
hear the audio.
okay. Maybe I'll send a link, or maybe you can just I'll explain what is happening. So basically, the CEO is saying that this is the way they do it. The idea is that Google Assistant has to call and set up an appointment, and they're kind of going to demo what happens here. Oh my God! I think I will probably stop this because it's better when you listen to this. Maybe I'll forward this, or even you can search on Google and YouTube and watch this. It's amazing the way they've programmed uh, contextual reference to what the user is saying. Basically, it's saying that I want an appointment to be done at a certain time. The person says that we don't have that time. Will this time work? And the assistant says all the responses, which are very natural. This is like amazing thing. Um, so with this, I will like to stop the presentation part and let's go to the questions or comments.
Okay, thank you for our presenter. We are grateful that you have given such a great joy of knowledge. And if attendees have any question, they can ask.
2 hours is too much. Everyone is tired.
So, sir, I have one question regarding
Yes.
the presentation which you have given. So, I just wanted to ask whether that UX and user experience which you are talking about,
Mhm.
whether it is more sort of a design aspect or a technological aspect. Basically, what tools you use in order to create a good user experience in terms of technology. You suppose
Mhm.
we want to create a website, we use certain kinds of languages. So is there is
Mhm.
a technique, or it is mostly a designer who is working with the with the understanding of technology? What scenario suits it better?
Yeah, it's like usually people who are more into UX, they don't have enough understanding or background of technology, but it's good to have. And UX doesn't talk too much about technology because the focus is on the experience, right? Technology doesn't matter. Even when I work with companies where we interact with the principal engineers and technical leads, we have this conversation like, hey, we cannot do this because the technology doesn't provide this. So, but our question basically is because we are talking for the user, we just ask the same question like, is there anything else that can be done? Can you change the technology to have this experience? So that's how we approach. And the other aspect is what you asked, like, is it good to have the technology knowledge? Yes, it is good. So that because again, it's an experience, right? I'm working with a developer. If I know that particular thing don't happen, I get the ability to have that trade-off. When I'm designing, if I know what technology the product is going to have, I'll try to fit that experience without compromising the experience. I'll try to use components or the aspects of that technology. So that's what I think is apt for your question. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
If anybody else want to ask any other question, they can ask. So I think nobody else have any questions. So let's thank user for their hard work and their knowledge which they have given us. So I would like to request everybody to basically open their cameras so that we can have a group photo. It would be nice if you can share your images so that we can have enable your camera rather than share your images. I will be taking a screenshot. Okay, so I have taken the screenshot. Thank you everybody for your participation, and I would like to thank our users, thank our presenter, and there are some important announcements which I would like to make before you can leave. So first of all, I want to say that please fill the feedback forms which we will send to you in just few minutes, and we have already sent it to you basically. And apart from it, I would like to thank our speaker, our participation, and every other person who make this FDP possible. And from my side and from the speaker side, I think things are over. So we would like to thank everybody, and I would like to tell that this session is over, and we will meet after 10 minutes. So thank you, Vijay sir. Thank you, Vinay sir, for your time, and it is a great pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. I had amazing fun, and I really hope that people enjoyed this. Maybe it was too much content, but I hope something was delivered. And I please still watch that video of that Google Assistant and enjoy
Sure,
that.
we will.
This is
We will.
amazing.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.